All right, you ready for some tarts?
It looks incredible.
Doesn't it look pretty? I think it's like a nice festive thing for the holidays. I also think that this server maybe came from our wedding. I like how tart it is. I actually like that the Macintosh apples are more tart.
It's got a really good tang to it.
I think this is really nice.
I'm sure it's a great dessert, but this is also substitute breakfast and lunch for me.
I know.
It
All right, we have the winner. Scott likes it. That's always very reassuring to me.
If you want to make a French tart like this, you've got to have some crust like this. We're making French tarts apple style next time on The French Chef.
Hi, I'm Amy Traverso, co-host of GBH's Weekends with Yankee in my home kitchen. And today we're going to be making one of these. So we need to fill one of these with a lot of these on today's episode of You and Julia at Home. So let's make this crust. It's pretty simple, and I'm basically going to use Julia's method because I think it's fantastic. So I've already sifted and measured my flour, and now I'm going to add my other dry ingredients. I've got a couple tablespoons of sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to just whisk this together right now.
Pastry dough or pie dough, all it is flour and water and fat.
Okay, so that's combined, and now I add my fats. Now Julia uses a combination of unsalted butter and shortening. So I've got a stick of unsalted butter and 3 tablespoons of shortening. So first I'm going to break down my fat using this pastry cutter.
This blends the flour and the fat very easily, because the most important thing is that you do not let your butter soften.
You use the tips of your fingers to work the fat into the flour, and you just kind of rub it in. This is the motion I'm doing with my fingers, almost like I'm making the universal sign for money.
And just squeeze the butter and the flour together, and you want to do it just with the tips of your fingers. You don't want to rub it like that with the main part of your fingers because that's too hot.
So I've got some cold water from my refrigerator that I've kept chilled, and I'm going to add, I've got about 5 tablespoons in here. I'm going to add 3 and stir and see how that does. I'm going to take this out on my counter, but I want to first put down a little flour so it doesn't stick. And the way I do that is just kind of sprinkle. Finished crust out of the way. Just sprinkle this way from the side, and you get like a nice snowy dusting of flour on your counter. Okay, so this is a technique that Julia always advocates. It's called frizzage, but it's basically just using the heel of your hand to rub the dough, to kind of smear the dough down, and that creates beautiful sheets of fat.
What I'm doing, I'm very rapidly with the heel, and be sure that you use that because that is the least hot part of your hand. I'm taking about 2 tablespoon bits and just smearing rapidly out. And you want to do that rapidly. Remember, pastry making is not a delicate thing. You want to be fast and tough and rough.
And now what I'm going to do is I've brought this into a ball, I press it down into a disc, and then I wrap it in plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator for at least an hour and up to 2 days. So if your dough is very firm when it comes out of the fridge, you can certainly, you can smack it with your rolling pin.
And so you can take your rolling pin and beat it up a little bit, just to soften it.
So I'm going to start rolling it out, and the key movement here when you're rolling out a piece of dough is to work from the center and work out in all those directions. So you go out from the center to the top, out from the center to the bottom, out from the center to the sides, out from the center to the other side, all the way around. You want to sort of keep doing that. So I'm going to now transfer the dough to my tart pan. So the way I like to do it is to roll it up and around my rolling pin. It just kind of helps keep it from breaking. It makes it really easy for me. And then I unroll it over the pie plate or tart pan, depending on what I'm working with. So I think I got it fairly centered. I'm a little off, but it's gonna work. And so now I'm gonna gently kind of lift and lift it on the side and just gently push it down into the corners.
And then you want to lift the dough up and gently push it down the edge of the ring all the way around. And this has two reasons for doing. One is that you want to make the edges a little bit thicker than the bottom so that they'll be sturdy and won't break.
You can get a pretty edge with no effort. All you do is you take your rolling pin and you roll it over the top of the tart pan. And you can see it cuts the dough, and then you can just pull it away and you have this pretty scalloped top. I love that. We're not going for perfection here. We're just trying to kind of give ourselves the best shot at getting the result we want. All right, here is my cute little tart shell, just out of the fridge. It's firmed up. The way I like to weigh down my pie crusts and tart shells is by putting a piece of parchment paper or aluminum foil, and I just basically fill my shell with the foil first, and then I pour in I have this assortment of dried beans that I keep at all times. I've got some black beans, some pintos, it doesn't matter. Any kind of sort of slightly larger, heavier bean is great.
And if you don't have a pan that fits exactly, use some thin aluminum foil and turn it into a ball and put it into the dough, and then fill it with beans.
Let's put this in the 400-degree oven for 9 minutes, and then we'll take out the beans and see how we're doing. So while my pie shell is cooking, I just want to talk about my apples and I want to prep them. Now, I wrote a book called The Apple Lover's Cookbook, which is right here. And in order to write this book, I had to peel so many apples. And I definitely have a favorite way of doing it, which is you peel around the top first, and then you peel around the bottom, and then you just peel down the sides. By doing it this way, you can peel an apple in about 30 seconds, when you're making a pie, that makes a real difference. Another way to very quickly process an apple, and this is with my old-fashioned peeler corer tool. The way you do that is you stick the apple on the bottom end onto those prongs, and you just turn it, and it hits the peeler, and it just takes that peel right off in seconds. I love this thing. I can then core by hand and slice them, and it works just great. Now, tiny bit of cleanup on the peel that I'll need to do around the top there, but it still really speeds up the whole process. So I'm going to first start with my slices. These are Macintosh apples, which I know Julia loved, and they brown fairly quickly. So one solution, both for flavor and color, is to add a teaspoon of lemon juice, pour that over them. That prevents browning. And also I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. This recipe does call for a 1/4 cup of apple brandy. So I'm going to pour that in, as well as 2/3 of a cup of sugar. So I spilled that, that's okay. And a little bit of apricot preserves.
And then you want also the flavoring of apricot jam, and you'd want about 1/2 cup of apricot jam, and you put it in a sieve and push it through the sieve to get rid of those little pieces of skin.
So we've got our shell, we've got our fillings, and now we get to go to the really fun part in my view, which is this assembly. This is where you get to kind of be a little creative, and it feels like arts and crafts. But you just pour that beautiful sauce right in there, and it fills, it smells so good. It's like apricots, apples, and that kind of spirit smell of the Calvados. And now we just get to make a pretty decorative pattern around the outside. So I'm just kind of letting them overlap a bit and going all the way around.
I started on the outside. You could start any way you'd like. That isn't a whole one. Carefully. When you're doing the sauce of the apples for your marmalade, you keep out the most beautiful slices for your decoration.
Okay, so Julia does not add cranberries to this tart. She simply puts it in the oven as is, but I like color. I like a pop of color, and I also like cranberries because I'm from New England. So I'm doing a decorative cranberry pattern around the around the sides, I should say. Okay, so this is ready to go in the oven. It's gonna go into a 375-degree oven for 30 minutes, and I'm gonna put it on the top third of the oven. You want it a little close to the heat source on top so that the top browns a bit. My tart is out of the oven. It looks lovely, and as a finishing touch, I'm applying some apricot glaze. So here we go. I'm just brushing on this glaze, and the nice thing about the apricot glaze, or jam, really, is that it adds a little bit of color. So you kind of worry with an apple tart that it's just going to be very brown on brown. But in fact, between the cranberries and this glaze, I have a very pretty little tart with some color. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me make this tart, but even more, I hope that you will try to make it too and bake along with me. If you do, please post your photos so we can see them with the hashtag #YouandJulia. And always remember what Julia said about cooking: there is no end to imagination in the kitchen. In order to make one of these, let's not lose it, sorry.